Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined as always by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are looking at another 3-game NBA playoff slate here on Thursday night with you guys. We are taking a look at some best bets in this video. We also have our player props video up for you, so make sure to like and subscribe to that page and continue to follow along. Also head to thelines.com. You can check out all the great written content we have up there as we're throwing the picks up on the site during the playoffs right now. And we also have the odds finder tool up there. You can use that to make sure you are getting the best odds available to you in all of these bets that we're making in the NBA postseason right now. Nate, let's jump right into your first NBA best bet for tonight.
Yeah, it's similar to 2 nights ago. I'm going Suns money line, and I'm going Book and Durant to score 25 plus, which is actually still plus 200. This time, not adding the DeAndre Ayton rebounds, which we hit on Tuesday. I'm gonna cut and run on that one and not depend on it every time because he did have 5 personal fouls, and who knows if he has to sit. Look, it's not a question that those guys are going to score 25, really. The Suns need that to win. It's a question of whether the Suns are going to be able to pull this out again, and I do think they are. I mean, despite the fact that the Clippers have superior depth, it's the playoffs, and your bench guys are playing like 15 minutes for the Suns. They're starting. The longer the series goes along, the better the Suns are going to look because they are really the ones figuring it out on the fly. It seems like Monty Williams is really trying to figure out his rotation behind the big four there and figure out some defensive strategies, which they actually pulled out, which is like they doubled Kawhi Leonard. Like, why wouldn't you? In game 1, they didn't. That's why I was trying to fade him in game 2. And they still let him go off for 3 quarters, but then they doubled him in the 4th. And on those possessions, the Clippers shot 1 for 7 from the field. Not surprising when you don't have Paul George out there, when Eric Gordon is your second best offensive player. And the fact that Russ went 9 for 16 from the field, had a great offensive game, is in some ways a double-edged sword. I mean, now the Clippers are going to, there's going to be a lot of groaning from the home fans as he decides he's going to pull up and not get the ball to Kawhi if Kawhi's being face guarded, doubled, whatever. The Suns won that game with some excellent defense. They won it despite getting outshot set by 17 free throws, allowing 12 offensive rebounds again. Held the Clippers to a 17-15 assist-to-turnover ratio, which is troubling. They won it despite a pretty poor game from Kevin Durant, who just crept to that 25 that we needed for the parlay. I think he'll bounce back. 5 assists, 5 turnovers, 0 for 4 from 3. That is very un-Durant-like. And Booker, who's, just been able to play off him, though, with the Clippers trying to deny Durant. That's the difference, right? You can deny Kawhi, make Eric Gordon beat you. If you deny Durant the ball, Devin Booker will beat you. He scored 38, and he's, since Durant came on, shooting over 50%, averaging over 30 points per game, his first 7 with KD. Even Torrey Craig is thriving as just a wide open option because of the attention those two guys draw. So while there are some concerns about the Suns' lack of depth, the fact that Book and KD have had to play 44 minutes in each of these games. Look, I'm more concerned about Kawhi on shorter rest than those guys. If you talk about injury history or, Chris Paul always gets injured, it's Kawhi who can wear down, who takes half the regular season off so that he can go on these super heroic playoff runs. I don't think he's going to necessarily run out of gas yet, which is why I would say if you add Kawhi to score 25 with this parlay, you're up to plus 280, and I wouldn't bet against that either. I just don't think the Clippers have enough around him in their starting lineup to match points, and I don't think it's really a big home court advantage for them. They're 4-6 as home dogs this year, 19-22 against the spread. I think the Suns will have plenty of support there as they try to take control of the series.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. You definitely had me until you started talking about Kawhi getting hurt because I think he's good at this point, to be honest. I think if anything, KD is still the most likely to get hurt. Not that we're asking for that at all, knocking on some wood here. just won a good series. 25 for all three of those guys feels like the right call pretty much every night, even though I don't think Devin Booker is going to get to 30, and I'll talk about that a little bit. I think the key thing here, though, in game 3 is I do think there's going to be a few less points. I know it hasn't been like an offensive explosion necessarily in this series. I mean, the 123 that the Suns scored last game is not what I expect them to get at. The Clippers are a bit better at home. They tend to go under at home. They give up a lot less points at home. So there's going to be fewer points. Doesn't really matter on the Suns team, to your point about the depth. Like, if they get 101 points, are you going to be surprised if Booker and KD have 62 of them together combined, right? Like, no, you're not. So that's all still very possible, which is something similar, honestly, to that Dubs game back in Golden State against Sacramento, which is where I go with my first pick in terms of thinking it's going to be similar to what I was saying about the Clippers and Suns back in LA, where there's a few less points than there were in the first 2 games in this series. And that's why my first pick is under the 239.5 that game was at last night when I was looking at it. I just want to make sure I still have it right. It is up to 240, half a point. But either way, I'm still going under on that. As I said, I think the key thing to start with is Draymond Green not playing in this game. And that is, he's that type of player where on both ends of the floor, he's, equally as important. He's got the sort of the gravitational pull of a sun or a mass giant planet because of the fact that he impacts the game so many ways on offense outside of just facilitating. It is also keeping the ball moving. It's not necessarily just the first pass. It's the entire offense is predicated on don't stop moving, and Draymond Green is sort of the center point where the ball comes right back to him. He makes a pass. If there's nothing there, it comes right back to him, and everyone just keeps cutting. That's what I mean by sort of gravitational pull. And I think that he's not way more important, because he's probably the best defensive player of the last 20 years in the NBA, especially for this modern day NBA and the way it plays. But on offense, he's equally as important, almost as important to this offense and to Steph and Clay and everything that they do. In the last 2 seasons without him, I mean, if you remember that stretch last season where he went out for a month and a half, he missed about 30 games or so. But all season last year missed about 45, and they were 22 and 23 without him versus the 75 and 74 and 44 that they were with him over the last 2 seasons. Just basically an average team without him because of the fact that they rely so much on Steph to just do superhuman things. Also, like I said, 5 less points a game, slightly worse on defense. They play slower without him, a 98 pace versus 100 pace. Obviously, fewer assists, fewer threes as a result of fewer assists, blah, blah, blah. Like, they're just worse on off. They're not the same Dubs that they are without him. It's just diluted way down. And this one, going back to Golden State, has me thinking okay, well, Sacramento's already showed that they can play some defense. Mike Brown has game planned for Steph Curry very well. And I know it sounds crazy to say that when he's got 58 points, and they probably would be doing a lot better if Clay, who I continue to fade in the playoffs right now, if he was shooting well, that maybe things would be a little bit different. But the way that he game planned for Steph in the second game was incredible. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in player props. But I think that's going to continue. And now it's even easier on Mike Brown to have to figure out what to do with Steph without his, best sort of facilitator around him and taking his game to new heights, which is what Draymond Green is going to go to the Hall of Fame for, is making other people around him that much better. Dubs allow 3 points less at home. On the road, their defensive rating is 118 versus 108 at home. It's the same stuff we've talked about all season, and it kind of continued in the playoffs in this last game, giving up 249 points in the first 2 games, 250, whatever it was. There's a lot of points. And last thing I'll say here, Golden State at home, 16 and 25 to the over on the season. Sack 15 and 26 on the road. Both are bottom 3 sack. That's the least overs on the road of any team. So 240, I think we're getting a bunch of value because we just saw, a bunch of high totals, and people think this one's going to come back to the Dubs and be more high scoring. Like, if anything, it was going to be more high scoring in sack, and we just saw the last game go to 223. We're going to get a lot more of that. It's going to be hard for this Golden State team to get points right now. They're going to be working their asses off for every point that they get, I believe, and 240 is too high.
Yeah, I am not really as worried about the Dubs offense, but I do think that they'll lean on their defense, even without Draymond, in this backs against the wall situation. I mean, it's the playoffs. I think we were kind of misled by the first game going nearly 250 in this series and being like, oh, this is going to be just like the regular season Kings games, like 240. Like, no, we're not going to do 240 very often in the playoffs. Like, it does slow down. And the Warriors going smaller probably without Draymond, more Gary Payton, more DiVincenzo probably means they'll do a better job of slowing down the Kings' pace, right? And being able to keep Fox out of the lane and make this much more of a grinded out game where you are going inside and the officials are swallowing the whistle, and it's not free flowing points. So yeah, the under is definitely the safest way to approach that game. I agree. I'm going to look at this Nets-Sixers game, and the question is, will the Sixers sweep? Will they win both of these in Brooklyn? I'm going to say probably. I'm going to say they win game 3. Maybe they chill in game 4. But look, Embiid double-double in a win is plus 112. And I think you can take the spread, sure. But Embiid has a double-double in 13 of his last 16 playoff games. Did not in game 1 at home. But in game 2, the Nets really doubled him relentlessly. He had to impact the game in other ways, including 19 boards, 7 assists. So I will also mention that 5+ assists is plus 215 in the win here. If you think the Nets are going to continue to employ that strategy, I guess it was successful holding Philly to 96, but they only scored 84 in game 2, which to me is just lots of rebounding opportunities. I would be surprised if he doesn't grab 10. The Nets allowed the 4th most rebounds to opponents this season, 2nd most to centers specifically. They were dead last in field goal shooting after the break. And Embiid on the road, 33 points, 9.5 rebounds since the start of February. In the road playoff games in his career, he averages about 11 rebounds per game. Nets also have a worse offensive rating at home. You talk about another arena that's not really a home court advantage. And the Sixers are playing 3 possessions faster on the road since the start of February. So if this game isn't a 90 pace, then that's going to mean more possessions, more rebounding opportunities when you have 2 offenses that are kind of sputtering. Or, I think Embiid to get 10 boards is a pretty safe bet here.
Yeah, that's what you're hoping for. I mean, for Embiid right now, in both these teams, it's just kind of gross. You'd think it would actually be a little bit more tailored to Embiid's game. I do wonder about a bit of the fatigue with him when he's going for boards, not quite as many on the offensive end as well as maybe you would hope for, especially as he's limiting the other team's rebounds a ton as well, especially in that game 2, where, I mean, the Nets were a bit hotter up. That was a really gross shooting game, which is the only thing that kind of scares me about that one, because you'd think that he would have come closer to that in the last game as well. But they're doing a good job. They're obviously game planning super well. Give Jacques Vaughn a ton of credit, especially for what he's done with this team since they left. They traded everybody, but I do think that he's going to have to continue to figure that out in this one, and I'm not sure that he's got it with a Sixers team that is scoring a bunch more on the road. Maybe this will be a little bit more free flowing. I'm hoping so for my last pick as well, because I'm taking an over on Cam Johnson, and I don't think that they've accounted for the fact that he is an 18-point a game scorer right now. And in his last 10, actually, including the playoffs, he's a 19-point per game scorer in 32 minutes per game. So I'm going over 17 points for him, or excuse me, over 16 and a half. He can get 17. Over 16 and a half, that is on DraftKings. I am going to take the threes because I'm going to assume that if he's getting the 17, he's going to be hitting 3 threes. He could hit 2 and still get there, but in this series so far, he's got 5 threes and 4 threes made in each of these first 2 games. You only need to get over 2.5 for him to get you minus 108 on Caesars. So I'm throwing a unit on both of those. I think there's a situation here where you've got to give more Cam Johnson to the people. He played 41 minutes in game 2, rewarded Jacques Vaughn with 28 points in those 41 minutes. 19 field goal attempts was the most on the team, made 11 of them, and is shooting 52% from the field, 60% from the field in the first 2 games, 52% from 3. Not saying he can sustain that for the entirety of the series, but 16 and a half points is below where I believe his prop should be. If it was 17 and a half, I would take it. 20 points for him right now, the best I could find was plus 155. Not bad for him to get 3 more points. I don't know if it's totally worth the extra juice there, unless you're throwing it in some crazy parlay that you want to do. But you got to give me more Cam Johnson. It's what they need. Dinwiddie is not doing it right now, as I kind of thought he might not. 38% from the field for Dinwiddie, and then you've got DFS, who, to be fair to Dorian Finney-Smith, only 41% from the field, but he's 2 of 6 from deep right now, averaging that in the first 2 games. So that's what he's there to do, honestly, on offense, is try to get some boards and definitely screen and hit threes when you're open. Royce O'Neal's supposed to be doing that. He's not. 27% from the field, and even worse from deep as well for Mr. O'Neal. So like all those guys out there that do all the hustle plays and all the little things that they need done on the defensive end and such, like Cam Johnson's not a liability on the defensive end at 6'10". So he's got to play closer to 40 minutes than the 28 minutes that he played in the first game. Still got the 18 points on 11 field goal attempts in just 28 minutes. But I think you're going to see that much closer to 40 once again than you will that 28-minute clip.
Yeah, I mean, it's a similar role for him now with the Nets, as in terms of like there's 2 better offensive options. The other team is trying to funnel the ball away from them, and his job is to catch and go or to catch and shoot, right? And he's comfortable in that role. The Nets, Jacques Vaughn clearly understood that he needs to play him more as a third offensive option in game 2, and they still really struggled offensively. Hopefully, that as a team, they're a little bit better at when they go home here, but he's the leading scorer. I expect him to get 17 plus again as the Sixers continue to try to limit Dinwiddie and Bridges.
Yeah, no, and I think they will. And I think we're going to get a lot more Tyrese Maxey as well. You never know when James Harden's just going to not show up like in the playoffs. I mean, maybe we should be banking on it more than we don't right now, but randomly he's going to have like a 14-point, 18 assist game that's going to make everyone look silly. But that is all the time we have for you in our Best Bets video. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along. Check out those player props that we are wicked hot on. And until we see you next, happy betting.